Okay, so just to start off, do you want to give us your name and a little bit of background information about yourself?
My name's Anastasiya I'm a senior at Appalachian State. I'm majoring in computer information systems. I am originally from Ukraine and I moved to America when I was 7 years old. And I'm now living in Lake Norman, Mooresville, North Carolina.
Okay. And you said you moved to Ukraine when you were about 7?
From Ukraine, yeah.
Okay. What made your family decide to move from Ukraine?
My mom and my dad, when he came to visit in Ukraine, and they fell in love in Ukraine, and he decided to bring us over to America.
Okay. And how would you say that life is different from Ukraine and America?
Life is very different. So, for instance, since I've mainly lived in the South, people here are more friendly, more genuine. You hold the door for one another. You always say hey. You wave to someone on the streets. Whenever you're in Ukraine, if you do that to someone, people misjudge you and think that something's wrong with you. They'll be like, oh, why is she smiling at me? Or why is she holding the door? So I've had a personal incident where I held the door for someone, or I just casually smiled, and the lady just casually stared at me and was like, what's wrong with her? So they perceive it very differently than Americans perceive a hi or holding the door here. And with children there too, a lot of them are like little thugs running around. So with them, you have to train yourself to be mean back to them instead of being kind, because you're not going to get the kindness from them that you want.
Okay. Do you have any cool childhood memories from Ukraine or anything that stands out in your mind that's like really different or just unique about yourself?
Childhood memories, I mean, since I moved here when I was little and I don't really remember anything, I just remember whenever we went to school, we didn't have a car, so every morning I'd get up. My grandma would casually braid my hair and then just walk me to class, and it would be like a 3-mile walk every day going to class and then 3 miles walking back. They didn't have buses for students, so you pretty much either walked or took taxis. Another fun memory, I guess, is in Ukraine we didn't have grocery stores at the time, or like malls. So whenever we went shopping, it was like outside doors. And you had to like walk around different, and it was like a bunch of parking garages that had stores inside of them. And I remember one time I stopped to look at it, and I completely was like, okay, Mom, I'll see you soon. Yeah, that went nowhere, and I completely lost my family. So that was fun considering we didn't have cell phones back then.
Yeah. How would you compare the food to American food?
Food there is what I think, in my perspective, food there is way more better because there's no pesticides or preservatives, non-GMOs mostly, like what their foods are. They have a bunch of farmers market, and with that said, their farmers market, people usually sell foods on the streets and the food that they grow. So you can usually bargain for whatever food you want, and then they give it to you. And they have raspberries, corn, especially corn. Corn's my favorite because American corn, there's so much preservatives in there that you don't get the real taste of the corn there. They don't do anything to it. As soon as they grow it, they just clean it and give it straight up to you. I guess a lot of their food is more bready and more mayonnaise, and they don't really focus on coffee. They focus more on tea. So pretty much after 5, you stop eating. You'll have dinner around like 4 something or 5. Then in the afternoon, you'll just have a cup of tea with like a biscuit or something, and that'll be your food for the day, for the evening.
That's cool. What would you say is different? I know that you visited recently over break, and what would you say is different about, I guess, just, I know you mentioned that people act differently, but I guess just the lifestyle in general, or like fashion-wise, stuff like that.
Fashion-wise, Ukraine has always been at least 10 years behind America. So right now what they have in style is guys are always wearing skinny jeans, girls are always wearing Ugg boots. They have, what's popular there is fur coats. So in America, it's not acceptable to wear fur coats, you're going to be judged. But in Ukraine, if you wear a fur coat, then people automatically assume that you're wealthy and you have money. If you have, like, say, a North Face jacket, even though we don't have North Face there, but if you have that type of jacket, or like a Calvin Klein jacket, you won't be seen as wealthy as you are in a fur jacket. Also, it's pretty much mandatory if you for girls to wear heels, or even with boots and leather boots all the time. Body image is a huge thing there. If you're not if you're not a small person or like a small girl, then you're not going to get the attention you would want from the guys. So that's a lot of girls do starve themselves there and make sure they're at the right size and what the media wants them to be.
Okay. What would you, I guess a big deal in America has been like plastic surgery and just like altering people's bodies and stuff. Do you think that's like a big trend over there too, or is that more of an American thing?
Over there, since body image is such a big thing, a lot of them, when I went back to visit, a lot of my friends get their eyebrows tattooed on. So the darker eyebrows, the better, and like the more arch you have on it, I guess. A lot of them also get fake eyelashes, and also a lot of the girls do keratin treatments, and they apparently having straight hair and brown hair is what's in style in Ukraine right now. So a lot of the girls are starting to dye their hair and getting the keratin treatment. And there, if you convert the cash, it'd probably be around like $60 to $90 to get it done there. Here it's like $150 and higher. So, and also, having high cheekbones is a big thing there now. So a lot of them do get high cheekbone implants or whatever. I don't know my surgery terms, but they just like to get that uplift.
Do you think that Ukraine or any European countries, do you think that their level of violence or anything like that, like gang activity, do you think it's worse than the United States?
I think it's worse, but they never show it on media as much as the U.S. does. So, like in the U.S., we always had stories about cops assaulting someone or someone assaulting a cop. In Ukraine, since the country is so corrupted, it's easy for you to just pay under the table and get away with it. There's been so many rape cases where if the guy knows the policeman, all he has to do is, and the judge, all he has to do is just give him money, and he gets no charge on any of his record, and the girl just gets left with whatever happened to her. So everything is just completely corrupted, and you can get away with pretty much everything you do.
Wow, that's insane. Has that affected your family in any way?
Yeah, actually, whenever I was 3 years old, my dad was actually on business, and he had to go find some friends, and it was a bad group of guys, so they had to go find them. And his other group of friends that were not with my dad at the time were trying to find the bad group as well. Well, whenever my dad was running away, he was standing under a light post with his friends, and then the other good group saw my dad and his friends and started shooting because they thought it was the bad guys. So with that said, one guy got shot in the arm, my dad got shot in the artery, and one guy ran away. So that pretty much affected us because all of his friends just left him on the streets because they didn't want to get in trouble for it. What they did is an hour later, after he was like laying on the streets, they just took him to the hospital and left him by the hospital door, rang the doorbell because they had doorbells back then, and just let him there. And the doctor said since he was shot in the artery, he could have had a little chance of surviving if he was brought in earlier, but not with that. The doctors didn't really care at the time anyway, so.
Mm-hmm. And I know you were super young when he passed away.
Yeah, I was 3 years old, so this is like from stories my mom telling me.
Mm-hmm. That's insane. I'm sorry. Do you have any other cool stories from Ukraine? Or I know, like I said, that you visited recently and you were talking about some stuff. Anything that your mom has told you in like recent news, especially? I know that there's been all this like talk between like Russians and like Donald Trump. I guess like anything politics related that's like interesting from their side.
Something that could be interesting is whenever I went, it was in December till January 5th. And so I got to watch how, after the new year, how everything changed. So since there is a war going on between Ukraine and Russia, and it has been going on since 2013, what they started doing was, since the western side is more Ukrainian and the eastern side Ukraine is more focused on Ukraine, they decided after New Year's to take all the Russian channels away and convert everything to Ukrainian. When I used to live there, everything was mainly, like where I was born, was mainly talked in Russian, and all the advertisements were in Russian. But then since this whole war happened, when I went back this past year, a lot of the advertisements were in Ukrainian. People approached you, were only talking to you in Ukrainian. So that's a language, if you didn't know how to speak it now, that's something you want to pick up as soon as if you want to move back to that country. Because now all their channels are only in Ukrainian. So when I was there, all I did was watch music videos because that's the only thing I could understand.
Mm-hmm. So. Wow. Yeah, I had no idea that like any of that stuff was going on. I just know there's a bunch of controversy about like relations with like Russia. And
Yeah,
stuff
and it's
like-
crazy how like not the media doesn't the media in 2013 and 2014 used to show a lot of things that was happening, and they used to my grandparents live in Ukraine, so they would tell us what the Ukrainian news was saying, and then we would tell them what the Americans were telling us, and it was completely two different stories because America, even though it was trying to help out Ukraine, it was still taking facts from like the Russian side and just showing like, oh, this happened in Ukraine and this country killed someone else. And it just, if you YouTube so many videos of the war, and you'll just see how many people have like died on the streets in Ukraine that the news hasn't even shown. It's tremendous.
Wow. Well, I guess I can't really think of any more questions for you except for, can you say something for us in Russian?
Give me a sentence.
Say, this is the best interview ever and Claire should get a good grade on it.
Это самое лучшее интервью, которое здесь было, и Клэр должна получить 5.
Okay, thank you so much for your time and I hope you have a good day.
Thank you.